For the sermon today, I want us to take a fresh look, in a way, at the book of Matthew. You know, if Jesus had stopped with the Sermon on the Mount, he would have been considered a great teacher, a moral authority, a religious teacher of the highest order. In fact, that is really precisely how Jesus is regarded by much of the world today. And even those people who would not call themselves Christians certainly believe that he was one of the greatest teachers who ever lived. Many people who, while they have no particular religious overtones or faith or spiritual beliefs, certainly believe his teachings were great teachings and basically live by many of the things that Jesus said, at least if they fit their lifestyle, they do. So he is considered as a great teacher. The Sermon on the Mount certainly is, I think, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, moral treatise ever laid out for man. I certainly consider it the greatest. In just a few short chapters, 3 in fact, he lays out some very, very fundamental teachings about the relationships between men. Jesus is, without a doubt, a great teacher. The question is he any more than that? Well, John the Baptist was a great teacher. But he was as great as he was, according to Jesus, the greatest, very frankly, of the itinerant Jewish preachers that had come along and from generation after generation after generation. He said, among those born of women, there has not arisen a greater than John the Baptist. And of course, another great Jewish itinerant preacher was a man named Saul of Tarsus, whose teachings, whose letters, just a few letters, only a handful of them, a very tiny portion of the Bible, have served to revolutionize parts of the world. These were great teachers. So was Jesus, in some way, greater than they were? Is his greatness ascribed to something more than the fact that he merely inspired Paul, or was the inspiration behind him? Of course, Jesus himself did say that those who followed on his heels, his disciples, would do greater works than he did. Matthew contains the most comprehensive version of the Sermon on the Mount. But today's sermon is not going to be about the Sermon on the Mount. What I want us to do today is to stop and think for a moment, where does Matthew go after the Sermon on the Mount? What does he have to discuss about Jesus' ministry after that time? You know, if you haven't turned over there yet, would you be able to tell me what Matthew tells us took place right after the Sermon on the Mount? Here, Jesus has finished the sermon. He has come to the end of it, closed it off, and they started down the mountainside. What happened then? For indeed, it has to be of some importance. We're only barely into the book of Matthew. 3 chapters have been devoted to the Sermon on the Mount, but he has 28 chapters in his book. And we have only finished with chapter 7 when we get through with the Sermon on the Mount. There is much to discuss. Have you ever looked at Matthew's gospel from Matthew's perspective? Now, what I mean by that is this. If you had spent 3.5 years of your life with Jesus, camping out someplace night after night, sitting around campfires, talking and listening to him and asking questions and being able to discuss all sorts of things, if you had seen his healings, one after another as they took place, if you had seen the light in people's eyes as they were liberated from burdens of many generations and many years, if you had seen all these things, and you'd been with him for 3.5 years, and you sat down to try to write a book at a given point in time, for you realize Matthew's gospel was not written for many years. Actually, I think the last of Paul's epistles was finished, signed, sealed, and delivered before Matthew ever wrote the first word of his gospel. So he was a long time getting around to writing it. And when he sat down to write it, what did you suppose would have motivated him to include one event and not include another? What would you have written? What could you have included? What could you have left out? Probably one reason that maybe these Gospels weren't written earlier is the difficulty in writing of them. For I don't know where I would have started. I would have sat down and tried to put things in some kind of chronological order, and I suppose I could have been limited by my memory, except that Jesus said that the Holy Spirit would bring all things to my remembrance. Say that. So memory should not have been a problem. My point simply is that Matthew made choices. He made decisions. He thought about things and decided not to include them. He thought about other things and decided to include them. Why did he do this? What was his object? What message was he trying to convey? It's difficult sometimes, after all these generations, to figure out who a person's audience was and what he had in mind. And yet the message is there for us to look at and to study it, to try to figure out, well, what was he driving at? What did he perceive as important? It's really important because by the time he wrote this, Matthew had plenty of time to perceive the reactions of people, to see their responsiveness, to see their lack of responsiveness, to register their doubts, and to say, I can understand how you feel, but here's what Jesus had to say about that, and to continue on. So I want you to turn back with me to Matthew 7, to the conclusion of the Sermon on the Mount, and let's see if we can grasp a little bit from Matthew's perspective of what is he driving at, of the things that he selected, and of the things that he left out. For these men, now bear in mind, this is one of the problems that people have in studying the New Testament. They do not grasp quite the perspective of these writers. They do not understand that they are not historians. For one thing, they are not trained in the historian's craft. They are simply men chosen by Jesus Christ and sent out to carry his message to the world at large. And as far as they themselves are concerned, they recorded these things not as history. For you see, a historian would have simply been bound to simply impartially try to recount the events and maybe derive some kind of meaning from it. But they were, if anything, theologians, and they had a theology, they had a doctrine, they had a mission to carry out. And so their message very much reflects that message, that mission that they had been given. Now, I'm not going to read any of the Sermon on the Mount. I'm going to start with the first words following the Sermon on the Mount. You'll find them in Matthew 7 and verse 28. It came to pass, when Jesus had ended these sayings, the people were astonished at his doctrine, for he taught them as one having authority, and not as the scribes. Now, this word authority is an interesting word. There are two words in Greek that are often translated, not quite interchangeably. But the Greek word here translated authority is often translated power. It's exousia. There is another word that's often translated power. It's dunamis. It's the word, really, I don't know who selected it, but he chose that word to make our English word dynamite, because it is, of course, the word that means power. Now, I looked up both of these words in the Greek and tried to come to grapple with them from a perspective of saying, what are the nuances of meaning? How are we to understand these words? How do they come across us? Because the concept of power is an extremely complicated idea. So we could be talking about saying, well, I have the power to do this, meaning I have the right to do it. We could say I have the power to do it, meaning I have the ability to do it. We could say I have the power to do it, meaning I have the energy to do it. For electric power is energy, isn't it? Power can have to do with just having the physical strength to do it. I have enough strength that I can actually lift the thing. So there are a number of really complicated ideas that go along with exousia and with dunamis and with power and with authority as to what they mean. Now, for example, if you look at this scripture and you consider what it's saying that he taught them as one who had power and not as the scribes. What does it mean? Well, there are two little simple nuances of meaning here that I think may help you to understand it a little bit. They were saying that Jesus taught them as one who had the right to teach, as opposed to saying that Jesus taught them as one who had the ability to teach. Well, you see, the one concept of power has to do with inherent ability. You know, I have the power to speak in the sense that I have the ability. I'm capable, I have experience, I have knowledge, I have words, I can put the things together, I understand the skills of argumentation. We can say that the Greek orator is an able or powerful speaker in that sense. But the sense in which they are speaking is that he had the authority or authorization or right. He taught them as one who had the right to say these things, which is a different idea that he is conveying. But he introduces at this point in time the fundamental thrust, really, of his entire gospel and of what he is trying to say to these people. What he is trying to say in his gospel, and you will find it very clearly as we go along, is that Jesus not only was a great teacher, he was a teacher who possessed power to back up what he said. He was a man of moral authority. For indeed, many of us could make that kind of a claim, that one of the reasons that we can persuade and teach is because we teach with a form of moral authority. It's all called moral suasion in law. It's a means of making people do things, not by coercion, not out of fear, not out of physical power, but out of simply the power of one mind to persuade another mind. Now, there are a lot of people like that. But is that all there was to this man who taught with authority and not like the scribes? Now, you have to remember that your chapter breaks are not here in the Greek. And let's just continue on, because Matthew continues to develop what it is he's saying. He taught them as one having authority and not as the scribes. When he would come down from the mountain, great multitudes followed him. And behold, there came a leper and worshipped him, saying, Lord, if you will, you can make me clean. Now, it would be almost impossible, in fact, impossible, I'm sure, for any of us to comprehend what this meant. Leprosy is and was a loathsome disease. It is much better understood now than it was then. A leper can have a relatively normal life now, as much as any person who is dominated by a disease can have. While it is a feared and loathsome disease in certain parts of the world today, it is nowhere near like it was then. So leprosy was a disease that attacked the skin of the body, at least first and most outwardly, and the skin itself would rot and fall off, and eventually limbs would rot and fall off, and the person could lose ears and different parts of his anatomy, and he looked horrible. And of course, it was a progressive disease. The difficult part of it in this time of the world was the man was ostracized from society and humiliated by his disease. He had to cover his mouth in public. He had to go wherever he was crying, unclean, unclean, so that people could stay away from it. I suppose it had its advantages when you're trying to get through a crowd. But a terribly, terribly sad disease. Now here comes a man whose skin is falling off of his bones, whose skin elsewhere is white with leprosy and is rotting away on the flesh of his. He comes to Jesus with this plea. He says, Lord, if you will, you can make me clean. And Jesus did something that no other human being would have done. He put out his hand and he touched him. He said, I will be clean. Just like that. The man's skin was made whole, probably looked better than mine. He was clean everywhere, healed completely. He could look at his own hands, at his own body, and suddenly realize it was done. Immediately his leprosy was cleansed. And Jesus said, see, you tell no man, but go your way and show yourself to the priest and offer the gift that Moses commanded for a testimony to them. Now this man, Jesus, when he had finished teaching, and the people were astonished at his teaching, for he taught as one that had authority and not like the scribes, had real power over leprosy. Not imaginary, not moral authority, not persuasive teaching, real power. Now listen as he continues. When Jesus entered into Capernaum, there came a centurion beseeching him, saying, Lord, my servant lies at home sick of the palsy, grievously tormented. And I dare say that he was. I presume he's talking about something like cerebral palsy, where a person who is otherwise intelligent and capable and an effective citizen in many ways has a disease that makes him actually look like he is somehow even mentally disabled. For people who have cerebral palsy have so little control over their face and their hands and their body. It is a tragic disease. And this person was tormented this way. And he was a man, a centurion, a commander of 100 men, who was deeply concerned about a servant who suffered this way. And Jesus said, I will come and heal him. The centurion answered and said, Lord, I am not worthy that you should come under my roof. You speak the word only, and my servant shall be healed. For I am a man under authority. He said, I'm under power. I understand power. I understand authority. I'm a man who is under right, if you will. And Jesus, he said, I have soldiers under me, and I say to this man, go, and he goes. To another, come, and he comes. To my servant, do this, and he does it. He says, I have the right to tell them to do these things. And when Jesus heard it, he said, I have not found so great a faith, no, not in Israel. And I say unto you that many shall come from the east and the west, and shall sit down with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the children of the kingdom shall be cast out into outer darkness, and there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. He said to the centurion, go your way, as you have believed, so be it done unto you. And his servant was healed in the selfsame hour. So he had power over palsy, a horrible disease. He has power over leprosy, he has power over palsy. And this man came to him and he understood power. He understood what was involved in the whole thing. He could see in Jesus that he had the authority, and that when Jesus said the word, it would be so. It's incredible to think about that. He wasn't thinking in terms of a physical power, that somehow Jesus was able, if he got there and he could touch him, that the physical power was there. What he understood was that Jesus had the right to heal, not merely just the ability to heal. An interesting difference of concepts. They are very close. They are very intertwined. And don't try necessarily overly to separate them in your mind. For the right to heal or the ability to heal or what have you, the point is, he could do it. We're not talking about someone who could talk about it. Not merely someone who made claims. Not merely a persuasive or charismatic personality that we all admire and would like to follow around and be with and spend time with. This was a man who had real power, can really do things. And this is Matthew's point as he starts out down through this discussion of what Jesus was doing. And when Jesus was come to Peter's house, he saw his wife's mother laid sick of a fever. He touched her hand. The fever left. She arose and ministered to him. And so he had power over fever. In verse 23, when he was entered into a ship, his disciples followed him, and behold, there arose a great tempest in the sea, insomuch that the ship was covered by the waves, but he was sound asleep. His disciples came to him and woke him, saying, Lord, save us, we perish. He said to them, why are you afraid, O ye of little faith? So he arose, he walked out on the deck of the ship, and he rebuked the wind and the sea like you and I would rebuke our dogs. No! Stop! Back! Sit! And the wind stopped, and the sea calmed and obeyed him like a well-trained dog. What kind of man is this, they said, that even the wind and the sea obey him? Jesus had power over the weather. Now, you've all read these things. You've heard in Sunday school. Maybe you're a little bitty kid, and you don't know these things. But you realize what's involved in this? What this means? This man could talk to the wind and talk to the sea, and they would stop and they would do what he said to do. We're not just dealing with another Jewish itinerant preacher. We're dealing with someone who had power to back up the things that he said. When he was coming to the other side of the country of the Gergesenes, they met him two possessed with demons coming out of the tomb, exceedingly fierce, so that no man might pass that way. A couple of the worst demons anyone had ever seen. Behold, they cried out, saying, what have we to do with you, Jesus, Son of God? Are you come here to torment us before the time? There was a good way off from them a herd of many swine feeding. And the devils besought him, saying, if you cast us out, suffer us to go away into the herd of swine. He said to them, go. And when they were come out, they went into the herd of swine, and behold, the whole herd of swine ran violently down a steep place into the sea, and perished in the waters. And they that kept them fled, and went their ways to the city, and told everything what was befallen to those who were possessed with demons. The whole city came out to meet Jesus, and when they saw him, they asked him to leave. This is astonishing. But when he came into the presence of these two men, these two demon spirits, they immediately recognized who he was. They immediately recognized his authority. They knew from the first moment they saw him that he had absolute authority over them, and all they could do was ask. He allowed it. But these demon spirits had to obey him, and so he has power over demonic spirits. It's getting to be a pretty impressive list, isn't it? Power over leprosy, power over palsy, power over fever, power over the weather, power over demons. What else is going to be here? Chapter 9, verse 1. Behold, they brought to him a man sick of the palsy, lying on a bed. And Jesus, seeing their faith, said to the sick of palsy. Now here we're going to try to prove something else besides having simply power over palsy. Son, he said, be of good cheer. Your sins be forgiven you. And behold, certain of the scribes said within themselves, this man is blaspheming. And Jesus, knowing their thoughts, said, why are you thinking this evil in your heart? Which is easier to say, your sins be forgiven you, or to say, arise and walk, but that you may know that the Son of Man has power on earth to forgive sins. Now he can make the claim. He can say, I have the power, but could he do it? Then he said to the sick of palsy, arise, take up your bed, and go to your house. And he arose and departed his house. he was healed. Right there, on the spot, that moment. So this man not only has power over palsy, he has power over sin, and the power to forgive sin at this moment in time. And he has not even died yet, interestingly enough. So we're getting quite a little pattern, aren't we, developed here of the power that Jesus had, that he possessed. And he said, it goes on to say here, he arose and he departed to his house, but when the multitude saw it, they marveled, and they glorified God, which had given such power unto men. Passing over the next page, verse 18. While he spoke these things to them, behold, there came a certain ruler and worshipped him, saying, My daughter is even now dead. Would you come and lay your hand upon her? If you will, I know she'll live. And Jesus arose and followed him, and so did his disciples. Behold, a woman who was diseased with an issue of blood 12 years came behind him, and touched the hem of his garment. For she said within herself, If I can only touch his garment, I shall be whole. Jesus turned about, and when he saw her, he said, Daughter, be of good comfort. Your faith has made you whole. And the woman was made whole from that very hour. And this is a very interesting incident that takes place at this point in time. And you wonder, well, why is it here? Why was this chosen to? Of course, he put it where he put it because it fell inserted into the event of another case. In other words, he was going to this girl who had just died, and on his way this took place. So Matthew places it here, but it interrupts the flow of the story, so it must be important that Matthew put it here. What I think is interesting about this is it is a rare instance of where a person of whom Jesus himself seems totally unaware goes up to him and without his knowledge reaches out and touches him. Now then he knows. Well, one of the gospel accounts says he realized that virtue, and interestingly enough the word is power, went out of him. He actually felt it go. It was like a power surge or a power drain that took place in his body at the moment that woman touched his garment. So he knew and he turned around. What is important here is that it is possible for a person to reach out to Jesus Christ when he has not necessarily reached out to them. Normally we think in terms of Jesus saw this person spoke to Jesus, he looked at them, and he made a conscious decision to heal. So I think sometimes we may not realize this, that it is possible for us at a time when maybe Jesus himself has not focused his attention on us, for us to reach out and touch him. Now, this is something I think would bear some thought. I don't know that I would understand all the implications of it, but it is really important to realize here is someone who was able to reach out and tap his power without him himself volunteering to do so. This power is a very real thing. It is not entirely something that required conscious effort on his part to make things happen with it. It was there. It could be tapped. It could be touched wherever he went. Well, this incident over, it says, Jesus went on and came to the ruler's house and saw the minstrels and the people making a noise. He said to them, Give place. The maid is not dead. She's asleep. Well, they laughed him to scorn. But when the people were set forth, he went in and he took her by the hand, and she rose. Now we've got a new thing, haven't we? This man has power over death. He can actually touch someone who not only is sick, have already died, and bring them back to life. Now you have to realize this is not just some ordinary itinerant Jewish preacher, is it? The pattern becomes clearer and clearer and clearer and stronger and stronger and stronger as Matthew develops the idea of the awareness that this one that we are having to do with is not a man, it is a man who possesses the very power of God, and indeed he is himself God. And then it goes on to say, where Jesus departed, there two blind men followed him, crying and saying, Son of David, have mercy on us, have mercy on us. When he was coming to the house, the blind men came to him, and he said, Do you believe that I am able to do this? And they said, Yes, Lord. And he touched their eyes, saying, According to your faith, be it unto you. And their eyes were opened, and Jesus straightly charged them, saying, See that no man knows it. But when they left, they spread it all over the place. So he had power over blindness. Now you have to admit, this is a pretty impressive list, don't you? You have to really realize you're not just dealing with just any old person here. But Jesus not only taught with authority, but he had the power to back up, not just the ability, but he had the authority, he had the right, he had the ability, he had the strength, he had whatever it took to do whatever needed to be done in this situation. Now, I think there's some important things here. Now that Matthew has established this concept, that Christ has the power to carry out whatever it is that he feels should be done, where does he go with it? Well, we read in verse 35, Jesus went about all the cities and all the villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every sickness and every disease among the people. It was really quite a display as he went from place to place to place. But when he saw the multitude, he was moved with compassion upon them because they fainted and were scattered abroad like sheep, having no shepherd. In other words, Jesus looked and he was moved, and there was a response to this emotion within him. So he said to his disciples, the harvest truly is plenteous, but the laborers are few. Pray to the Lord of the harvest that he will send forth laborers into his harvest. Now he's talking about here and now. He's not talking about sometime off in the far distant future. He looked at people, and he was moved by the people he saw, and he said, look at all this, and I'm the only one that's going about doing this. So he called his 12 disciples, and he gave them power against unclean spirits to cast them out, and to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease, and out these men are to go. He gave them the names of the 12 apostles of these. He said, first Simon, who is called Peter, Andrew his brother, James the son of Zebedee, John his brother, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew the publican, James the son of Alphaeus, Lebbaeus whose surname was Thaddeus, Simon the Canaanite, Judas Iscariot, who would later betray him. These 12 Jesus sent forth and commanded them, saying. And this follows a commission. It is a commission given specifically to these 12 men on this particular occasion, having to do with the way in which they were to conduct their ministry. For later on, he would send them out with a little bit different set of instructions. Some aspects of it would be modified. And yet, in spite of that modification, there are things in this charge, this admonition, this commission, whatever you would like to call it, that ring down through every generation of man, to anyone who would take up God's word and sally forth to try to explain to people or expound to people or preach or prophesy or bear witness of Jesus Christ. He said, as he said to them, he said, go not to the way of the Gentiles, into any of the city of the Samaritans don't enter, but rather go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And as you go, preach, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out demons. Freely you have received, freely give. How would you feel if you were one of those men standing there on that day, and he looked you right in the eye? He said, now I want you to go out there, and I want you to tell these people the kingdom of heaven is at hand. I want you to heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, and cast out demons. And here you go, down the roadside with whoever it is you're going along with you, and you're supposed to find some sick people and heal them. You're supposed to touch the leper and cleanse them. You're supposed to encounter demons and cast them out. Would you feel like you could do that? Something I want you to think about today. Maybe you want to write it down and never forget it. Jesus Christ will never call upon you to do something without giving you the power to do it. He will never expect you to do it unless he gives you the power to do it. It would be silly, wouldn't it, when you think about it? So Jesus say, tell you what, I want you to get busy. I want you up and out of here this afternoon. I want you clean down the rust by tomorrow morning. I want you to empty out that hospital down there. There's several demons down there. There's a lot of sick people. I want that hospital emptied out tomorrow morning. And send you off down there and then chuckle to himself after you're gone saying, he can't do that. Makes no sense at all. And the truth of the matter is, he never has, nor will he ever call upon a human being to do anything when he is not willing to give you what you have to do it. Now, I think that is one of the most important lessons to be derived out of what Matthew is saying here. Because, you see, this is all being written by one of those 12 men who actually went out on that journey and did what he was told to do. And they came back off that ship just rejoicing. I mean, they were on a high they couldn't ever repeat in their entire lives. Rejoicing because the demons were subject to them in Jesus' name, and they had cast out demons, and they had saw people healed, and they laid hands on the blind they could see. you have any idea what that would do to your psyche or your whole mental makeup if you healed about a half dozen people? Man, that would give you a lift. It'd give you a drive and a zeal and a desire to find some more and change some more lives. If you had that kind of power, they were given that power. They were expected to get out busy and go out and exercise. He then talks about all the other things that they were going to have to do. He said, if you go into a place, whatever town you shall enter, verse 11, inquire who is worthy, and you stay there till you leave. When you come into a house, salute it. If the house is worthy, let your peace come upon it. If it's not worthy, let your peace return to you. Whoever will not receive you, nor hear your words, when you depart out of that house or city, shake off the dust of your feet. Verily I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for that city. Did he have the power to back that up? I think we can conclude that. He had the power to back that up. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be as wise as serpents, as harmless as doves. Beware of men. They'll deliver you up to the councils. They will scourge you in their synagogues. You shall be brought before governors and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them and the Gentiles. Notice that power was not going to keep them from getting beaten on occasion. They had power to do certain things. But part of the power that they were given was the power to endure persecution and hardship. Not to get out of it, to endure it, to hold up under it. He said, when you deliver, you don't take any thought how or what you shall speak. It will be given you in that same hour what you shall speak. For it is not you that speak, but the Spirit of your Father that speaks in you. Brother shall deliver up brother to death. Father shall deliver up child. Children shall rise up against their parents and cause them to be put to death. And you shall be hated of all men for my name's sake. But he that endures to the end shall be saved. When they persecute you in this city, flee to another. Verily I say unto you, you shall not have gone over the cities of Israel till the Son of Man be come. The disciple is not above his master, nor the servant above his Lord. It is enough for the disciple that he be like his master, the servant that he be like his Lord. If they call the master of the house Beelzebub, aren't they going to do the same thing to you? Fear not then, therefore, there's nothing covered that shall not be revealed, nothing hid that shall not be known. What I tell you in darkness, that speak you in light. That's interesting. Why wouldn't he speak it himself in light? What I tell you in the ear, I want you to preach from the housetops. Well, why didn't he do it himself from the housetops? The truth to tell, he's looking ahead to a time when he's not going to be there with them. He may be with them, but not there in the flesh, only there in the spirit. And what he will be telling them will be told to them quietly in the darkness of their prayer closet. It will be whispered in the ear, or they will hear it in their heart. He says, what I want you to do is I want you to speak it in the light or shout it in the housetop. Don't be afraid of people who will kill the body. That power that he gives you won't prevent you being killed. But it will prevent you from giving up. It'll give you what you need to say in the moment of persecution. Don't fear them. Fear him that is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a farthing, and one of them shall not fall to the ground without your Father? All the hairs of your head are numbered. Don't be afraid. You are of more value than many sparrows. Whoever shall confess me before men, him will I confess before my Father which is in heaven. Whoever will deny me before men, him will I deny before my Father which is in heaven. And he continues with so many of the things, so familiar, really, to all of us about the responsibilities of those who would take his word in hand and, as I say, sally forth to try to convert the world. It came to pass in chapter 11, verse 1, when Jesus had made an end of commanding his disciples, he departed thence to teach and to preach in their cities. Now when John had heard in prison the works of Christ, he sent 2 of his disciples and said to him, Are you he that should come, or do we look for another? And Jesus answered and said to them, Go and show John again those things that you hear and that you see. The blind receive their sight. The lame walk. Lepers are cleansed. The deaf hear. The dead are raised up. And the poor have the gospel preached to them. The power was there. There was no reason for John to doubt it. Blessed is he, whoever shall not be offended in me. Passing down to chapter 11, verse 20. Then he began to upbraid the cities, wherein most of his mighty works were done, because they didn't repent. Woe unto you, Chorazin! Woe unto you, Bethsaida! For if the mighty works which were done in you had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and in ashes. Interesting. The word mighty works is the Greek word dunamis, power. He said if those powers had been done in them, the power had been demonstrated. The Solomon, or let's say the Tyre and Sidon, that was demonstrated, the Chorazin and Bethsaida. Tyre and Sidon would have repented a long time ago. There was enough there. There was a witness to these people. I say unto you, it should be more tolerable for Tyre and Sidon at the day of judgment than for you. You, Capernaum, who are exalted to heaven, you're going to be brought down to hell. For if the mighty works, that is, the power that had been done in you, had been done in Sodom, it would have stayed or remained until this day. I say unto you, it should be more tolerable for the land of Sodom in the day of judgment than for you. Does he have the power to back that up? Can he make that come true? You bet he can. At the same time, Jesus answered and said, I thank you, O Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hid these things from the wise and the prudent and have revealed them to babes. Even so, Father, for it seemed good in your sight. All things are delivered to me of my Father. No man knows the Son but the Father, neither knows any man the Father, save the Son, and he to whomsoever the Son shall reveal him. Come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and you shall find rest to your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. That's a beautiful scripture. You know why that is? Because when you think about some of the things that he said about having to face death, about having to be scourged in a synagogue someplace, that doesn't sound like a easy yoke or a light burden, does it? Does that sound like something you can carry real lightly on your shoulders? The reason his burden is easy, and the reason that his yoke is light, is simply because he gives you the power to do whatever it is that must be done. One thing that is heavy for one person can be a light burden for another person because of the strength that the individual may have. Remember this. Don't ever let it get away from you. Whatever the burden is you have to bear, whatever yoke it is that Christ puts upon you, whatever responsibility he lays upon you, whatever job he gives you to do, he will never call upon you to do it without giving you the power to do it. Therefore, he can say to you, my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. You'll see to it that it is, that you have what it is, what it takes to get the job done. Now, I think sometimes maybe we don't realize that we ourselves have to do a certain amount of work in order to create that, or to generate, or to put that power together. That woman, for example, had to actually get into a position where she could reach out her hand. She actually had to reach out and take hold of Jesus' garment. It was no good for her. She stood there and tried to catch his eye, and he might have just gone right on by. But she actually was aggressive enough to reach out and touch him when he gave her no permission to touch. And you have to realize that that could have been a very serious matter in that day, in that time. For a woman, an unknown woman, to touch a man unbidden could be a very serious matter. Much more than you might think, to reach out and touch that stranger walking by in the press, in the crowd. So she had to do something. And it was a dangerous something that this woman had to do in order to come into contact with and to get that power that Jesus Christ had for her. What other power does Jesus have? Matthew 12, verse 1. At that time, Jesus went on the Sabbath day through the corn. His disciples were hungry, and they began to pluck the ears of corn and to eat. And when the Pharisees saw it, they said to him, Behold, your disciples do that which is not lawful to do upon the Sabbath day. And he said, Have you not heard or read what David did when he was hungry, and they that were with him? How he entered into the house of God and did eat the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, neither for them that were with him, but only for the priests? Oh, well, yes, matter of fact, they realized that he did do that. So what he is saying is there was a situation where a very real and serious human need for food overrode the considerations of a mere formal or ceremonial law. Not that there was anything wrong with the law, not that the law should not be obeyed in the normal course of circumstances, but this was an exceptional case. He said, haven't you read in the law how that on the Sabbath day the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless? Notice he did not claim that the priests did not break the Sabbath. He said that what they do in breaking the Sabbath is not imputed to them. They are not blamed. He did not say the Sabbath was abolished. He did not say the Sabbath was unimportant. He did not say the Sabbath need not be kept. He said that what you need to understand is that there are some overriding considerations from time to time. But I say unto you that in this place is one greater than the temple. Jesus was the object of the worship of the temple when it was built. And so he obviously was greater than the temple. If you had known what this means, I will have mercy and not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the guiltless. For the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath day. He had power over the Sabbath. Shocking to the Jews. It's given to me in heaven and earth. Go you therefore and teach or disciple, make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things, whatever I have commanded you. And lo, I, who have all power, am with you always, even to the end of the world. And so that there is nothing that you have to do, no task that's laid before you, that you cannot do because you have not the power, for he is with you. But there is a catch. There is a catch in your having this power available. You must be doing that which he has given you to do. If you expect that power to be with you, you cannot be going someplace he did not tell you to go, going somewhere he told you not to go, ignoring the work that he gave you to do, ignoring his teachings, his instructions, calling him Lord, Lord, and refusing to do the things that he said. And shall I go on? It's so clear that if you are going to receive his power, you must be doing those things that he has given you to do along the way. Turn back to Acts, if you will, the first chapter again. Acts chapter 1. Now we are dealing with Luke, not Matthew. But a very important statement is made here. The former treatise, chapter 1, verse 1 of Luke. The former treatise I have made, O Theophilus, of all that Jesus began both to do and to teach, until the day in which he was taken up. After that he had, through the Holy Spirit, had given commandments to the apostles whom he had chosen, to whom also he showed himself alive after his passion by many infallible proofs, being seen of them 40 days, and speaking of the things pertaining to the kingdom of God. And being assembled together with them, he commanded them that they should not depart from Jerusalem, but wait for the promise of the Father, which you have heard of me. For John truly baptized with water, you shall be baptized with the Holy Spirit not many days hence. So when they came together, they said, Lord, will you at this time restore again the kingdom to Israel? He said to them, it is not for you to know the times or the season which the Father has put in his own power, but you will receive power after that the Holy Spirit has come upon you. So what they were waiting there for, and he told them, Luke records at the end of his gospel, you stay at Jerusalem, you're going to be endued with power from on high. So you're going to receive power after the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you're going to be witnesses to me, both in Jerusalem and in all Judea and in Samaria and to the uttermost parts of the earth. Now understand this. The power that they were going to receive was objective. There was an object to it. It was not random. It was not given to them for them to use any way they saw fit. It was goal-oriented, and the power and its manifestation was going to be goal-oriented. Something was there for them to do. Now, if you had not read any of the rest of the Bible, if you knew nothing of the rest of the story, and you had read up to this point, he said, you wait there till you receive power, what manifestation of that power would you have expected? What would you have thought was coming? Power to heal the sick? Yeah, probably. Power over demons? Yeah, you'd expected that. Maybe in greater measure than you've had it up until this point or something. Power over the weather, maybe. These were all the manifestations of power. Is there anything at all to give you so much as a clue that a manifestation, perhaps the major manifestation, the most obvious one, the most exciting one, would be the gift of tongues? Well, there's a hint. There is one. It's this. You shall be witnesses to me, not only in Jerusalem, in Judea, in Samaria, but to the uttermost parts of the earth. You can't do that without the language. That's the only hint. So all these people went into the temple and they waited. They had a real job on their hands, you know. Some people have the idea that what you're supposed to do when you're looking for the Holy Spirit, the gift is you're supposed to pray and cry and weep and moan and tarry together at some church meeting, and you agonize over this whole thing, and you sit there and you try to get the gift of tongues. These people didn't know what it was to try. They were not even expecting that. There's not a hint that they even knew it was coming. I don't think they tumbled to it. They had no idea what was coming. I think one of the interesting things is that if you and I have been told to wait for God's gift and His Spirit, you know, we might say, oh, why don't we get the gift of tongues this time? They couldn't, you know, today, that may not be necessary. That may not be what we need. We may need something totally different from God now. But people today seem to spend a great deal of time looking for what God gave to them 2,000 years ago, instead of waiting for the power of God in whatever way He decides that He is going to give it to you. It's a big difference, I feel, and a very important difference in understanding that. Because there is, I think, a counterfeit, an artificial power, a pretense of power, one that looks like it but isn't, really. Remember these little simple things. God will never give you power without an objective. And He will never give you an objective without giving you power. So, would you like more power? Get to work.